The Israel-Hamas conflict has sparked debates in every corner of the world, almost about any topic we can think of. Topics stemming all the way from dual-party terrorism to genocide to the end times, biblical prophecy, and God's place in it all. We've heard voices from Prime Minister Netanyahu wrongly citing this war as being the moment Israel has been waiting for in Isaiah 60:18. To the Hamas soldiers asking their God to make them victorious as they stormed neighborhoods and army bases in their undeniable terror attack on October 7th. Whether we believe this war is the marking of the end or the beginning of the end of the world, I think there is a slightly more critical question we should ask ourselves. What's our role in it? As a boldly professing believer in Jesus, I understand that October 7th and the fighting happening on both sides grieves my God, but he wasn't surprised by it. Jesus quotes in Matthew 24, verses 6 through 13, quote, "You will be hearing of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not frightened, for those things must take place, but that is not the end yet. For nation will rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom, and in various places there will be famines and earthquakes. But all these things are merely the beginning of birth pangs. Then they will deliver you to tribulation and will kill you, and you will be hated by all nations because of my name. At that time, many will fall away and betray one another and hate one another. Many false prophets will arise and mislead many. Because lawlessness is increased, most people's love will grow cold. But the one who endures to the end, he will be saved." As Bible reading believers, Jesus has called us to stand firm. Standing firm during these times is our role. But standing firm on what? Standing firm on him, his truth, his mission, his character, and his likeness. There seems to be one massive problem with standing firm in our role as believers in Jesus when it comes to this Israel and Hamas conflict. We're not standing firm on the foundational ground the bloodstained cross has provided us. Instead, we have decided that we will be tossed to and fro by mainstream propaganda and irresponsible biblical hermeneutics that incite our passionate intimacy with disinformation and factless opinions more than the truth that leads to sanctification and transformation. Those claiming to know the one true God have fallen for far too many gimmicks or lies. We've dislocated our critical thinking skills and proper interpretations of Scripture and have voluntarily plugged our hearts and brains into the latest and most attractive algorithms of fodder and network-driven bias. Our conduct in moments like these should be that of truth seekers, truth tellers, mediators, and gospel spreaders like Jesus instructs us to be in Matthew 24, verse 14. And that can't happen with a mere watching of the news. It must happen with a study of the Scriptures and a study of the news as we allow the Scriptures to interpret and tell us who is telling us the truth and who is lying to us. The news in no way is just a network game. Those of us who believe we don't watch the news, we watch it spreading in other places such as social media, work conversations, and agenda-fueled sermons. Even if we don't watch the news, those are the places where we get our information. But there's one fact that I need you to know. Most of it isn't telling you the truth, especially if it is coming from an American outlet. Why? Because it is yet to take the time to grasp and understand the full truth. It is rushed. It is moved hastily. It is moved biasly to tell you the American truth, but we can trace back and know throughout history the American truth has never been the full truth. If you don't believe me, then watch this exchange between Disney CEO and chairman of the board, Bob Iger, and Jon Stewart as they talk about the intentional lack of truth-telling and transparency within the fierce battles of media empires.
Don't you think coverage can influence behavior? Can news influence behavior?
Sure, it can, absolutely. Which is why I think it's so important for news to act responsibly. Look,
Boom.
it has just as much a power, just as it has a power to do good, it has a power to do bad.
What can be done to manage it more responsibly?
It's managed responsibly by some organizations, and by others, it's not. Look, people are not held accountable for inaccuracies, so there's that issue. And then there's the whole issue of profiting from, I'll call it inaccuracy. In other words,
Right.
from opinion and from, well, presenting things in an accurate fashion. I think if you're looking at overall the pot of that is considered news today, it's a problem. So to answer your question, I don't know what the answer is in terms of fixing it.
Let's use Fox News as an example, because I think it's a good example. Roger Ailes had an idea. I don't know if you knew Roger at all.
Roger came to me and
Right.
wanted to run ABC News at one point, before, believe it or not, in the early 90s.
Boy, that would have been a Trojan horse.
Yeah, we weren't looking for someone at that point.
Right.
So I wasn't in need, but I met with him.
It's really clear that he is advocating, or was advocating, a political position and used his storytelling ability and his narrative ability to create this powerhouse that is really the media arm of a political movement.
Look, if Roger Ailes had concluded, well, which he did, that news had a bias, that the then existing news organizations, particularly cable news, had a bias and was ignoring the right, and that he was going to go out and create an organization that was not going to be biased.
But but
he didn't do that.
He was cynical.
But
I don't think he was doing that.
But he didn't do that. He thought there was a business in being biased.
Correct.
But then what we've also seen is that other news organizations then pivoted in another direction as a countermeasure to what he was doing. So
Correct.
That, to me, was a huge mistake, because I think that was at the expense of credibility, at the expense of being accurate, I would argue even at the expense of being responsible.
Can you do a profitable news organization that also has the strength to cut through the noise in this media environment?
It's almost impossible, really, today. I don't know how you would do it. You'd have to, I don't think you can create a subscription news service that would generate the kind of revenue you'd need to cover news right. Mm-hmm. And advertising is typically reliant on consumption, so you'd have to really be betting that you could drive huge amounts of consumption.
What would you do? How would you fix it? Or what?
I've thought about it a lot.
If you were going to create it, how would you do it?
You'd have to start completely from scratch, but not because you're trying to erase mistakes of the past, but you're trying to erase perceptions that have been created over time. And you'd have to populate it people with incredible credibility and responsibility and accountability. It sounds very idealistic, doesn't it?
It sounds incredibly idealistic.
But maybe we need it, I don't know.
I still think of that idea of a news organization that is more cognizant of what that business model is, and that maybe there's money to be made that's not as relentlessly hyperbolic.
But I don't know, I just don't know how practical that is.
In terms of, you don't know that that's a winner as far as like, that it could be financially viable.
Well, financially viable is, well, even, yes, but I'm much more interested in whether it would truly make a difference in the world.
I feel like it has to, because I've seen the impact that one news organization has had on the deterioration of it. Somebody's got to generate fodder that's better quality. And it feels like, so I guess what I'm asking you is, will you run that?
You're not the first person who's asked me to consider.
Well, here we are then. So
oh, that's what
you
this is
seem to
about.
have an idea for it. You have an affinity for it. You've run these large organizations
People
before.
have presented me with that concept. Yeah, they have.
And?
Well, I haven't said yes to it because I'm not sure how practical it is or
Right.
how effective it would be. I don't know.
So if the news can't fix the news, then who? How about those called to objective truth, no matter what state the world is in? How about those who are told by Jesus why wars start and what brings them to an end? How about those who have an insight that is not entirely based upon their intellect, their arrogance, or their ignorance, but instead it allows those areas to fall in submission to that which is objectively true? Instead of being victimized by biased journalism and sensationalist media coverage, we can be the difference and highlight those already spreading the whole truth, no matter how beautiful or how ugly it is. No matter if it advocates or it opposes our points of view. We cannot hold the Bible in one hand and a remote phone or article in another hand if that remote phone or article contradicts the truth. We should be inseparable from truth. We should be inseparable from reality. And even if we may stray from it, we should hear its contents echoing in the voice of our shepherd as he reminds us that the truth shall set us free.